Hello and welcome to another tutorial from Moo ICT. In this tutorial, we're going to be making a guess the word game using C# and Windows Forms. So basically the way this game works is, if I just run this one at the moment. Okay, so we're going to be loading up a bunch of different words from a text file using C#, and it's going to tell us exactly how many words it's loaded. So right now we're loading 17 different words from a text file. And the first word, when it gets loaded up, it will get shuffled around. The string basically will get shuffled around in different positions. So the user will have to guess what the word is. So right now, if I just type anything in there and press enter, it will tell me how many times I've guessed on this label here. And then if I get it correct, the first word is programming. So if I get it correct, I just need to press enter, and then it'll tell me that I've correctly guessed it. Click OK, and then the label will get reset. The text box will get reset. The label here will get updated, and a new word will be scrambled on the screen. Okay, so we're going to be making this game using Visual Studio. Let's go ahead and make a new project. Okay, so in this window, I'm going to click on Create a New Project. I will choose my Windows Form.NET app template. Click Next. And now I'm going to name this project, guess the word, Windows Forms or ICT. Okay, and then click Next. It's going to ask us for the framework. So .NET 6 is fine. We're not using anything specific for the framework, so we can just leave it at the latest. Click Create. Okay, so here we have our empty project. So now let's go ahead and make some changes to the form. So the first change I'm going to make is the title. Let's say, guess the word game, more ICT. I'm going to change the back color of the form to a dark color. So we're going to change that to dim gray. Right, this is going to be a bit darker so we can see the text and so on a bit clearly. Okay, so now I can go ahead to go to the toolbox and drag and drop a label. So this is going to be our title label. Right, so the title label, I'm going to change the text of this one to guess the word. Okay, and then I can change the font. So if you come to the font option, still in the properties window, click on the three dotted buttons. So, and then let's go ahead and choose 26. Yeah, and I can just leave in the middle like this. And we're also going to change the fore color, something lighter. So I can change it to like a lighter color like this. Okay, so you can just see it's a bit of a pastel color. Let's go back to the toolbox again, drag and drop another label. So this is going to be the label that will show the word for us. So if I drag and drop it in there, and then I can go to the font option and choose, let's say 22 in this case. Right, leave it slightly in the middle there. And then I can change the name of this one to LBL word, okay, because we will be calling this one from the C# script. And I can also change the back color of this one to white. I think maybe I was white for this so you can read the important word easier. Okay, so move it up a little bit more. And now I can go ahead and get a text box. And then drag and drop the text box here. Click on the font option for the text box. And then we're going to change this one to say 22 as well. And make it a little bit longer. So you can see the whole word as you're typing it. Okay. And we also want to align the text inside the text box to center. So when we type, it goes to the center of the box. So while the box is selected, in the properties window, go to text align, and now click on center. Okay, and we also need another label. So instead of dragging and dropping another label, I'm just gonna hold Control and drag the label to, so it makes a copy of the label. And just drop in the bottom here. Actually, before we do that, I'm just going to undo that for a second. I do need to change one more thing for label 2 here, or the LBL word, which is the auto size. I'm going to set the auto size to false. And the reason I want to do that is because I want to make sure that the whatever word is generated inside, it needs to be centered inside of there. So okay, I'm just going to drag it to just the edge of the guess word bit and make it a little bit bigger. like so. And then when we come to the bottom of the properties window for this, go to text align, click on the drop down, and then click on the middle button there. That way, even if the word is longer, it's not going to look like it's just generating a word that's going that way. It's going to center it, doesn't matter where it is. Okay, so same thing I'm going to do again is I'm going to select the label 2, hold control, and then drag and drop it right at the bottom here. Okay, and this one I can make it slightly smaller and change that to say 18, right? Because this one is just going to give us the information. I'm going to name this one LBL info. Okay, and it's just going to say words : 0 of 0. Okay, and I want to also change the color of this one to something like bluish. Yeah, like that would be nice. Yeah. Okay, and we also need one more label to go on the side of there to tell us how many times we guessed the word. I'm just going to drag and drop this one again. So I'm holding control again, and I'm just dragging the words label to the side there. Okay, and I can just make it slightly smaller to match with the text box. Okay, and with the last label selected, I'm going to go to the top of the name, say LPL guessed. This is going to be how many times we guessed the word. Go to fore color and change that to a light yellow color there. Okay, and then with the guessed word selected again, I'm just going to say guessed 0. It's going to be 0 times. Okay, so however many times we guess the word, it's just going to update it there for us. Because these are the UI elements that we need for us to create the text file that we need. So still inside the Visual Studio window, go to your Solutions Explorer. So right where the name is, guess the word Windows Form Moo ICT, right click on that, go to Open Folder in File Explorer, go to Bin, Debug, .NET 6 Windows folder, and here is where our executable file will be created. So we want to make sure that our text file is right next to the executable file so you can load it as soon as the game loads, right? So I'm going to right click here, then new, they create a text file. Okay, and then the text file is going to be called words, like so. And to begin, the text file is obviously right now is empty. So you can add any word that you want inside the text file. So for now, I'm just going to add 4 here. Let's say programming, government, singing, and weather. So just 4 random words. And then we can add more to it right in the end. So I'm going to close this one now. Close the folder. Back at Visual Studio. Okay, so for the text box, we need one event. And the event that we need is going to be the key press event. So with the text box selected, inside the properties window, click on the little lightning bolt icon. That will take you to the events manager window. And then in here, you can see all of these events that can be added to the text box. The one that we're interested in is the key press. So if you followed any of the tutorials from the channel before, we have used key down, key up quite a lot, but we haven't used key press a lot. And I'm using key press for this tutorial for a very specific reason, and I will explain that a little bit further down. So for now, let's just go ahead and name this event to key is pressed. Okay, and let's press enter. Okay, so right now the event has been added. Let's go and add our variables that we need. So first of all, we're going to need a list of variables. So we will need a list type of string. We'll call this one words equals to new list. Then we'll just instantiate that. Okay, we also need another string called new text, a capital T. Okay, and we'll need an int called I. I will give it a value of 0 for now. Int guest is a value of 0 as well. Okay, so for any reason, if your form 1 comes up with a underline there, like a green one, like it shows up on mine, that's not going to cause any problems with the program, so we can still go ahead as we planned. Okay, so we still need a couple of custom functions along with the event that we have. So first function that we'll create is going to be for the setup. So we can say private void setup like so. Okay, and that setup function is going to load the text file and everything else for us. Okay, another function that we're going to need is the one that's going to scramble the words for us. So we'll say private void scramble. You can call it scramble or shuffle, whichever you prefer, but I'll call it scramble because it's basically just scrambling a word around. And then it's going to take in a string of text. Actually, this one's not going to be a void. This one will be a string. So we want to return a string back to the program. So the one that we're using with the void is basically not going to return anything back to the program. It'll just follow a set of instructions. But if we give it a type, we'll have to use the keyword return, and we have to return that type back to the program. Okay, so as you can see, although I've created the function, it's still showing up with a red line. That's because I haven't used the return keyword yet. And we'll get to that a little bit later on. Okay, so inside the setup function, let's go ahead and load our text file. So we're going to say words is equals to file.read lines. So we want to read each line, right? And the file name is going to be words.txt. So that's the file that we created. And then in the end, we'll do a to list. So it will go through the entire file, the text file, and then read each line by line. Each line will be a value inside the words string, the list here, right? So then we can access each of them as a child of that list. And then we'll say new text is going to be equals to scramble. We'll call the scramble function, and then we'll pass in the words, then the value of I. So because it's a list, we can pretty much call any value with the index, right? So we can use the I as an index, right? So right now it's I set to 0, so it's going to load the very first value from the list. Albeit word.text is equal to new text, right? So whatever the text comes back with, scramble is going to show up on the LBL word label. Okay, and then we say LBL info dot text instead of new text. It's going to be words plus I plus 1. Nope, not 1 plus 1. I plus 1 plus off, and then we want the count, right? So words dot count, the total items available inside the words list. So the reason we're doing the I plus 1 is because in programming, the arrays or the list always starts from 0. So right now I is set to 0. So we can't, in the game, we can't really say word 0 of 17 and then start the game. So the word 0 basically means we haven't started the game yet. So we're going to add 1 to it. So as the index is going up, the value displaying is going to be always plus 1. So if it's a 0, it's going to show 1. If it's a 1, it's going to show 2. If it's a 2, it's going to show 3. Okay, so that's the setup function at the moment. And now inside the scramble text, what we can do here is, because we're passing in a text there, so we can just say just to run the game quickly and then see if it runs properly. So we're just going to say, return. So whatever value is passed in, we'll just return it back to the program. So at the moment, if I run this game, it's not going to do anything because we haven't run the setup function yet. So the setup function is going to be run inside the form1 constructor. So inside of there, I can just say setup like so, and then brackets and semicolon, right? So to end the line. And then if I click on start the game. Okay, so right now, as you can see, it's loaded up programming, and it's also saying words 1 of 4, right? So because the first one is the word programming as we added it to the list. Right, so right now I can still type stuff in there. Let's say we haven't done the key binding quite yet. Okay, so to scramble the word, there's quite a few ways to do it, and the most simplest way I could find is using the new GUID method. So let's do the line of code first, and then I can explain what this line is doing. So first I'm going to say new string, right? So it's going to generate a new string for us, and we're going to turn a new string. And then the text value that is sent through, we're going to say text dot to char array, like so. So basically the text is going to get split into an array. So each character will be a child of an array. Okay, and then outside the bracket, we're going to say order by, like so. And then we'll do a local variable called x. It's going to be this symbol here basically means equals to and greater than, basically means in a list, it basically means a whereas. So we're going to say X whereas GUID dot new GUID, and then do the two brackets. Okay, and then outside the second bracket, which is still inside the X bit, we're going to say to array. Okay, and then we also need to end that with a bracket as well. Okay, so this line here, it might seem a little bit complicated at first, but all it's doing is basically we're using the GUID, new GUID method, right? So what that does, it creates a unique value. So each item inside the array will have a unique ID and they'll be scrambled across. So each item, I've tried this with like several different random methods, but even by doing that, it wasn't scrambling to a level where I wanted to for this game. So I resorted to this one, and this one actually worked out quite well because I have used this method before in one of the tutorials. Okay, I will leave a link in the description on some of the stuff for new GUID if you need to learn a little bit more about that. But for now, let's try and run this one again and see how it shuffles the word. So I'm going to click on the run button again. Okay, so as you can see, it's kind of shuffled it around where it's shuffled it quite well actually. All right, so let's run it again and see if it shuffles it again. Yep, so each time it loads, it will make sure that each word is shuffled across. So let's go ahead and do the key press. Key character is equals to, we need to communicate with the character here. We say casting a character, the keys dot enter. Okay, so if the key pressed is a enter key, done it 3 equals there. Okay, so if the key pressed is an enter key, then we're gonna run the following. So we can say inside of that, we're gonna say if words, then we're gonna ask for the I, and we're gonna say to lower. So just in case if you enter a word that is has an uppercase, then we're gonna make sure all of them are lowercase before we do a Boolean expression on them. So we're gonna say equals textbox 1 dot text dot to lower as well, so we can lowercase both of them, right? So if both of them are exactly the same, and we also need to make sure we are still inside the bounds of the list, so we'll say if I is less than words dot count -1, right? So with the -1, because if we get the words right, we want to move on to the next word, and the next word is obviously it's going to have to be I is going to have to be +1 at some point. So we don't want the I to go outside the bounds of the word count list. So that's why we're using the -1 on there. So just in case it goes out and crashes the program. So if we successfully guess the word, then we want to show a message box. Okay, message box show. Okay, right here I'm going to say correct. And then the title for the message box will say Moo says. Okay, so Moo says is correct, and then we'll also empty the text box 1. Dot text is going to be equals to an empty string, and then we'll do I is equals to plus equals to 1. So it increments every time we get it right. Next is we will now create a new word, so we can say new text is equals to scramble, right? And then words. And because I has been incremented, now we can pass in the new value of I inside of the functions to scramble the new word. And we'll say LBL word is equals to new text, and then LBL info. We need to update that as well. Dot text is equals to new words plus +1. Plus we do the quotation to say of plus words dot count. Okay, so it still updates. So basically it's going to say 2 of 4, 3 of 4, or so on. If we guessed it correctly, we want to set the guessed back to 0, and then we can say lbl guessed dot text is equals to guessed plus guest plus times LBL word. Oh, that needs to be LBL word.text. No, ext. Yeah. Okay, so at the moment this is going to work fine for us, and then we also need to do an else. So if we don't get the word right correctly, we need to do something, right? So we're gonna basically say here, so outside of this one, so this one is saying if it's equals to the text. Now if it's not, we can just take these two lines and make an else statement here. Okay, so else is going to be guest plus equals to 1. So it's going to add 1 to the guest value, and then it's going to display it onto the label. Okay, and also we need to do one more thing is if we reach the top of the word count, then we want to show you win screen to the player, or like just to say you win on the screen there, so we know that it's reached the end, the last word on the list. You can say else here and do the brackets, and in here I'm just going to take the new text there. Oh, sorry, not new text, LBL word here, and instead of new text I'm just going to say you win. Oh, well done. Okay, so you win, well done. And lastly we want to just return. So okay, so all of these now done, we can test it out. So if I click on the start button again, okay, so right now if I just try something random, press enter a couple of more times, as you can see it just keeps saying guessed 7 times now. And then if I type in right word programming, press enter, it says Moo says correct, and then it will change to the new word. Now I'm on word number 2 out of 4, and I've guessed this one 0 times. I'll say government, correct, singing, correct, and weather, correct. So right now it says you win, well done, and that's it really. So it doesn't matter how many times I press enter now, it's not going to do anything because we are using the return keyword there. So it knows the condition's already been met. So anytime we press it, it will still go away. So one of the things you might have noticed is that every time I press enter, it makes a system sound, right? And obviously, the more words you have, this can get quite annoying, right? So I did find a workaround, and this is why we chose key press. So the workaround I found only worked with key press event, but it didn't work with key down or key up. Okay, so we have to go to where the if statement starts. So right now where the enter key is being started, so the curly bracket ends here. So inside of there, right after the last if statement, we can just say handled is equals to true. What that basically means is right at the end, it's going to say the event's been handled, so there's no need to alert or do an alert to the system, right? So I can press run on this one again. And then now if I press anything, it doesn't. Right now, although I'm pressing the enter key, it's not making any sound, right? So I can press programming, okay, and the system sound has now gone away. All right, so that's the workaround that I found. This is why we're using the key press event instead of the key down or key up event. Although the similar logic that we have, both of those will work in key down and in key up, because we're not doing anything specific to those key presses other than just mentioning about the key character. And in key down and key up, you'll probably just use key code instead of key character. Okay, and one of the other cool things I want to show you is now that we've done the application, we don't have to do anything to the application to add more words. So if I go back to the location of the program, go to bin debug.nsx and just open the text file. So right now I only have like 4 words in there. So now if I add some more words in there, so let's say I'm just going to copy and paste all 17 that I had before. So we're up to the weather. Now we got summer, outstanding, Constantine, elephant, qualification, hello, name, etc. So just by using that, and then I can just run it directly from the debug folder without Visual Studio. So just double click on the guess the word forms, guess the word Windows Forms Moo Out.exe file, and then if I double click on that, So it'll tell you here that now it's loaded word 1 of 17. Okay, hopefully you have found this tutorial helpful and you learned something new with this one. If you are new to the channel, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel and leave any comments if you have any issues. And as usual, I will see you on the next tutorial. Take care.